Hi, welcome to PDQ Live. Today is our IT manager Ask Us Anything.
I'm excited.
It's really just going to be a conversation piece.
Okay.
We're just going to talk about what it's like to be an IT manager. Why should you become an IT manager? And what do you do all day? Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not for you.
We'll just talk about the space in general and just general observations. I think there's some stereotypes or generalizations that are made in the space. Maybe break those down or just give you some food for thought.
Yes.
Does that work?
I think so.
Okay. Where do we
We
want
do
to start?
what I want, yo.
Let's do it. Where do you want to start?
Should we start in some Discord? Unless you had other plans.
Let's start with, we're going to build it up just a little bit.
Okay, you want to tee it up?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think I've noticed there's a culture in IT that's a self-perpetuating cycle where sysadmins love to do IT, right? That's why they got in the job.
Yep.
They have a certain type of intelligence that doesn't involve talking to humans. You with me so far?
Mostly.
They don't particularly enjoy interfacing with the normies. We're going to call them the normies.
I might disagree there, but I'll follow. I'll counter there in a minute.
And I'm making big generalizations. Okay. As such, the last, I'm going to say 10 years or so, the C-suite executives, they are hiring outside for IT leaders. Now, these people that they're hiring for IT leaders don't have a very advanced IT skill set because they're hiring people that are like-minded, that maybe know some IT buzzwords. They can talk the talk just enough that they think, oh, they need to learn just enough of the soft skills to they themselves get some management experience to take those IT leadership teams or roles is what I should say.
Okay. So
Go ahead, you
there's
disagree.
a couple
Do
points that I want to disagree with. I think when you get into IT, it is a technical it's a customer service role.
It's a service industry for sure.
Like you're going to have to talk to people whether you want to or you want to disagree or you all want to jump on the bandwagon of, oh, I want to, the IT, person in the closet being dark. That doesn't really work. Like, unfortunately, in many cases, because you do have to interface with people, whether it's in like face-to-face communication or whether it's, over text. You have to interface because it's a customer service role.
Yes.
The other point that I want to bring up is like we'll talk about, oh, well, they want to go bring in this external party who says just the right words.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of unpack why. Like, why does the business feel that they need to do that? And is it something that we're doing as an IT community that forces that behavior?
Yeah. Why do they love consultants? They seem to love consultants.
Yeah, I like consultants. I like the external network. Is it something that we're doing? And I think it is. It's something that we're doing internally as a community to ourselves. We're doing ourselves a disservice.
There's a little bit of this communication-wise between IT and the C-suite executives. We're going to call executives the C-suite. Okay?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I just, maybe it is, why is it that we call IT managers who can do both a unicorn? Because like you've thrown that word around a couple times as we've been talking about this of, well, you need a unicorn to fill that position that is an IT manager.
Yes.
And I'm curious your thoughts, why that is a unicorn position to begin with, and why are your traditional sysadmins, again, broad generalization, so afraid of management?
So I use the term unicorn because it's just a term that came up a few years back. There are very few people, there's more now actually, the last 5-10 years, that can speak IT and like to relate to people, can speak management 101.
Okay.
Right? Or can talk to executives and actually enjoy doing that. And I think it's really necessary in the IT space because you cannot manage two people the same, and particularly sysadmins. You cannot manage a sysadmin like another person. They don't like that. So the unicorns, so to speak, I think do really well in this space because they can relate to IT people, they can speak the language, and then they can advocate for their team in a way that other people can't. So I find that to be very necessary. And I think there should be more of them. And I think you're actually a unicorn.
I'll disagree. I don't think I'm a unicorn.
Of course.
I don't think I'm a unicorn. I think what it is that you have to be able to speak both languages.
Yes.
You have to be bilingual. You have to not only understand the business needs, desires, wants of, the business as a whole, but you have to be able to relate to the business and relate also to maybe a very highly analytical, highly logical person who may not necessarily agree with all of the points or understand the entire picture.
Yes.
So it really comes down to having strong relationships and strong communication skills.
Yes.
Agreed. I think the hardest skill that I've tried really hard to learn is how to effectively gauge your audience's technical abilities or like where they're at, and then talk to that level.
Meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And it's a skill to not talk down to them.
Yeah. Because it can come across as either condescending, like if you break it down too little, or you just talk completely above someone's head, and then you're just like the blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to listen to you.
Yeah, totally. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So we've argued about this quite a bit. So I just want to start by saying I personally believe I could teach management skills, or we're going to call them soft skills, the social, emotional intelligence, right? There's all different kinds of intelligence. Yeah. I firmly believe I could teach it to anyone. I could teach it to anyone. Yeah. Now, whether or not they want to learn it, that's a different story. But I really think sysadmins should embrace, if they want to, becoming a manager, embrace leading your teams, because it's going to help IT industry as a whole. Yeah. Stop letting these outside people lead your teams. We should be leading our own teams.
Yeah, we absolutely should be leading our own teams. But like you started this thing off, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is.
We vilify, the business, the C-suite, and we say, oh, well, they're just going to, replace me with somebody external.
Yeah.
And so you treat them like they're going to replace you with somebody external.
Yeah.
And then it ends up happening.
Yeah.
And from a business perspective, it makes sense. Like, why would you not?
Yeah, of course.
Of course you're going to.
If you as an executive are met with anger and snarkiness every time you go talk to your IT team, of course you're going to go find a consultant who is nice to you or can talk to you at your level. Of course, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it is that hard to learn these skills. I really don't. I know everyone at home is like, oh, I hate her now. But bear with me. It's really not that hard. The very first step in management is build that relationship. Well, you already have that relationship with your peers. Now it's just a little bit of a shift to turn them into your managees or your reports.
Yeah, your direct reports.
Your direct reports.
Okay, you've done this a handful of times.
Yes.
Throughout your career. That's one of the hardest things, and I don't know that I can give any advice there, but like if you were in a team of people and then you get promoted or you change your career path, right? Because I see tech as multiple career paths. One of them is a management role. One of them is like a senior technical mentor role. You consciously choose, or you're forced into a people manager role. How do you navigate those waters? Because that's one of those really hard things of, hey, now I'm managing you. Maybe I'm doing your performance review. Maybe I'm even responsible for like your comp and your friends first and your, coworkers. What do you do?
Well, I think the most important thing is it's all about the team. And I'm not just saying that. I absolutely truly believe that. Know the value of your team. Look at your team and really take a cold, hard look and evaluate each strength of each member of your team. That's the starting point. So as far as comps go, that's easily done. Is every person being paid what they should? Is that the question, essentially?
Well, it's just like now you have to have that conversation.
You do.
Where when you were coworkers before, the conversation wasn't there. Like you didn't have to have it, but now you're into these maybe uncomfortable conversations.
The conflict.
Maybe you're even into conflict in some places. And I think that's the hardest part about management, especially for an IT person.
Yeah.
It's fun, the paradigm to me. As an IT person, we can all get into a room and we can disagree with each other vehemently.
And that's okay. It's okay, though.
About the work product, about a way to do some work product. And we can have this direct conflict and it's healthy and you end up with a really good outcome. If we tweak it just a little bit and the conflict is no longer about the work product, but it's about a person or the workplace, and it's these interpersonal things. The most common thing that I've seen is either, toxic passive aggression or just avoidance, neither of which are healthy.
Neither of which are healthy. And I think that not everyone, but people are afraid of conflict. And I understand that, rightfully so, but it takes practice.
It does.
It's okay to have conflict, but if you practice it, it becomes more comfortable. And there is constructive conflict. So I think publicly praising someone, always a great idea. Publicly criticizing someone, not so great.
Yep.
And there's a definite style and things that are appropriate and things that are not appropriate. So I spent the last couple of weeks reading Radical Candor.
I love that concept.
Mm-hmm. I do too. There's some things I like about it. There's some things that I don't like about it. I think it's a great book for a lot of people to read.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's practiced here quite frequently. There's some things in the book that I read and I'm like, oh, okay. I see how people are doing that.
Yeah.
I think for IT, it might be a struggle for certain people. To be so critically candid, it might be hard for a lot of introverts.
Yeah,
that was my take
it
on
is hard because you make yourself vulnerable.
Yes, you have to be vulnerable.
You have to be vulnerable. You have to voice those opinions, and that's the hardest part. And there's not some magic way of doing it.
Yeah,
it's practice.
Yes, but if you have that relationship, that's step one. Your manager has to trust you. Or sorry, you have to trust your manager.
Yes.
So you have that relationship. If you have that relationship, if you and I trust each other and you know that I'm building a career path for you and that we have talked about this and I know what you want to be when you grow up and I'm giving you criticism and it's immediate and there's small increments. We're not going to talk about it every single day, but if I'm giving you criticism and it's constructive, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm actually trying to help you.
Yeah. And
it's easier to accept
and
that.
it's almost universally craved in the industry.
Yes.
The feedback, everyone universally craves feedback. How can I be better? How can I grow? How can I do this better? And everyone always says that specifically around, remember, the work product. How can I be technically better? How can I hone these skills about, programming, about scripting, about insert, whatever you're wanting to grow in? Everyone wants that feedback.
Yeah.
It gets uncomfortable when it's the interpersonal skills. And that's where we, as an industry, have shied away from, and it's a problem.
Yeah, but I don't think it needs to be uncomfortable, especially if I say to you, I want feedback from you as well. How can I, as your boss, do better by you? What can I do to make working with me more comfortable for you? And it might be a different conversation with you than I'm going to have with Austin.
Yeah.
Austin may say, hey, you're micromanaging me too much. I need you to back off. And I'll go, okay, I can work on that.
Sure.
You need to invite the criticism yourself as a boss. And so these are going to be individual conversations you have with every team member, and they're going to be different.
Yeah.
So you have to be open to that criticism yourself.
Yes.
And that's challenging.
And you have to realize that each person that you have that relationship with, you should just have that open, direct conversation.
Yeah.
And if you're not an IT manager now and you're struggling with your manager, like this is an opportunity to manage up.
Yes. Oh, you always have to manage up. And people think that's a dirty word, but it's really not. And these are conversations you're not only having at your reviews, your bi-yearly, your annual. You're having them weekly. You're having them at lunch. You're saying, hey, I noticed you're folding your arms right now, Josh. It seems like you're uncomfortable. So should we talk about what that means?
Well, no, I'm grabbing.
No, I'm not saying it literally. I'm saying this is something you're noticing with someone. They're uncomfortable.
I'm going through the stack of paperwork here because we had some questions.
Oh, yeah. Should we take questions? We're just chatting. So.
Well, these questions have come in and they came in Discord. So I'm gonna grab one that's kind of relevant to right now. So this one's from Micah, who we've talked about already. All right. Why does it take 15 billion years for you to respond or see my messages and ignore them?
It doesn't ever take me 15 billion years to respond. And I think if your manager is taking 15 billion years to respond, that's something for you to bring up. I think that's something to bring up in a synchronous conversation so that you can look at them and see how they're responding, because that to me is a passive aggressive response. There might be an issue there. If they are taking that long, perhaps you are bringing too many problems to their table, and that's something to discuss. Say, hey, I noticed that...
this is a manage-up opportunity.
This is a manage-up opportunity.
This is where you get to practice your managerial skills on your boss.
I noticed that it's been a while since you have responded to my query. Is there something that I can do to get an answer more quickly?
Yeah. Let's combine a bunch of these things we talked about, have some radical candor.
Yes, radical candor. Practice.
Practice it, right? have that conversation when you can set these expectations. Hey, boss, this is the way that I like to communicate these things to you.
Yes.
Is this how you want to receive them?
Or is there something I can do to make that communication better?
Yes.
Bring it on yourself. Invite that criticism.
This is what I'm expecting as like a response time. Is that a valid expectation? Do you agree? Like just have those really direct conversations instead of dancing around. Otherwise you set up expectations in your head. They're not met. And then you feel disappointed. Versus having that direct conversation. This is the way I want to communicate with you.
Be open though. Be open.
Yeah.
One big part of radical candor that resonated with me was the expect good intentions in other people.
Yes.
Like and I think a trap that I've fallen into in the IT world is not expecting good intentions, especially with tickets. I would think that, this end user is terrible. They don't know anything. Reality is oftentimes a little bit more complex. And when you're able to like give grace and give space to someone having a different perspective than yours, it is massively helpful. And you have to really live the stuff that y'all are talking about. Like it's a culture. You have to have a kind of start to create a culture where open communication is a thing, where you're not going to bite someone's head off if they bring up the wrong thing. And as a leader, you have a lot of leeway to sort of help set that tone. But also, like you're saying, there's a lot of opportunities as an individual contributor to sort of lift up your team.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think there's some discussion in the chat about scheduled one-on-ones and having these conversations in a very structured way and whether it's useful or not. And I can give you my take on it. When I'm talking with my manager, I prefer a very structured one-on-one. We have a document that Brandon actually introduced to me, and it's this form. It is a harsh word for it, but it's an outline that we can both put topics down that we want to discuss and think about it. I'm a type of person that, I can give you an off-the-cuff response if you come to me with something, but it's not going to be nearly as good if I can process it for a while. You have a better response. So I appreciate that. There are people on my team, though, and people that I manage that I've asked, hey, do you want a formal one-on-one where we have a document, we think about it beforehand, we do this, and I hear, nah, that's not for me. Okay, cool. That's fine by me too. Like, but you have to be engaging in those conversations to make these type of things effective. If you're just checking the box, then it turns into just BS and everyone just checks the box and it doesn't actually do anything.
Well, that's what knowing your team. That's step one. Build that relationship. What else we got?
All right. Do you want me to pick one from here? Do you guys want to pull one in from the chat? What do you guys want to do?
If you have some pre-prepared, go for that.
Okay. Let's see. Should we work to invert the expectation so that management is seen as more a service or support position? If so, what actions can a company take to change that power dynamic? This is from Gackamore.
I 100% see management as a support for the team. I think that the management should work to move roadblocks out of the way of the team, and they should have your back at all times. That's my personal view on management, 100%. I mean, you aren't going to have the hard conversations if someone screws up, but that should be your primary focus, moving roadblocks out of the way.
I think this is I'm going to zoom out a level, I guess, here. This is a question about what style of leadership do you prefer to work for? What style of leadership do you fall into? I think like one of the common ways of assessing a leadership style is where do you lead from? Like if you imagine a group of people that you're leading, do you lead from the front? Are you the person that's like in the weeds, like this is the way, follow me? Are you the person that's leading from the side? Like this is a coach, like I can get in when I need to, but I can remove obstacles and I can see a larger section of the picture? Or are you that person that leads from the back, right? Who just sees the big picture, but the day-to-day minutia, like you're so far removed from, you don't even know what it is. It sounds like Gackamore would prefer more of a lead from the side position, right? The servant leadership role is what that person is expecting. And maybe that's a direct conversation that you have. You know, like these are open conversations you should be having with your manager. Hey, this is my preferred way of being managed. If you have expectations and you're not sharing those expectations, of course they're never going to be met.
Well, yeah, I think your team has to tell you what they need. How can I help you today? Should be how you start your day with your team. What do you need today? I'm just going to share this because I always found it very helpful. My teams, we always had a little secret word, and it was peppermint. I don't know why it was peppermint. It just was. If they were ever getting screamed at or in a position that they need to be rescued from, they would text me peppermint and their location. I don't know how it happened. It just did. And I would come there and I would make up an emergency and I would take over. It just meant they needed help.
Okay.
And so I would escalate.
It almost to me seems like your natural leadership style is from the side, like the coach, the player coach.
Until it became a real big problem, and then I would rip someone's face off if I needed to.
And then you just switch to lead from the I think that's a quality of leaders as a whole, is recognizing what your natural leadership style is and then making the ability to be able to pivot on the situation.
Yeah. I'm very big on career pathing. I very much believe in finding out what the person wants to be when they grow up, like you said.
Yeah.
I love building skills. I love finding out what interests them and kind of harnessing that. Because if someone comes to work and they're going to do the same thing every day, they're not going to be excited about that. I want to know what interests them. What are they passionate about? And that's how you build a good team.
Okay. All right. So that brings me to another question here that comes from Fortress. Speaking of what people want to be when they grow up. Okay. How do you encourage your team to continue developing their skills? And what role do you feel you play as an IT manager in their development?
Huge. That should be an ongoing conversation that you're having at all times with your team. So not only is it tied to their review, and that's something that you do together. I don't pick my goals that are tied to their raise based on what I think they should do. That's something we're going to come up with together.
Okay.
What are your interests, Josh?
I'm going to have a more pointed question then.
Okay.
Is it your responsibility to make sure someone's growing, or is the person?
It's the person.
And how do you draw that line? How do you establish that relationship, both from a manager to direct report perspective versus you're a direct report and having that conversation with your manager? Is that conversation different?
I think it's a little bit different, but I have a weird thing where I like to be a study of people's what they want. So I can watch someone and go, oh, they like networking. So I'll make it my business to find a little mentor for that person and kind of foster that relationship and that growth path. I like to do that. Okay. And then I'll sit down and talk to that person and say, Josh, I've noticed that you have an interest in this. How can we work on that? If they choose not to follow up on it, that's on them. But I will do everything I can to foster that career path. And I think that's really important as a manager. But you're right. If they show no interest, that's on them.
Yeah. I think so. One thing that I like to do with anyone that I manage is ask them, like, first question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. And how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
And then the second question is, like, this question stuck with me. Do you work to live, or do you live to work?
Yeah.
It's a spectrum, but it puts people somewhere on there. And that answering that question is, do you work is that your work the thing that drives you, or do you work so you can do something else out of life? And everyone's in somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Like very rarely do you find people on polar opposite ends of the spectrum. But then then that leads into a discussion about how can I help you grow?
Yes.
Right. The person that's here that's like, you know what, actually the thing that I'm really into is I like to, go bowling. And I'm really into bowling, but to support my bowling habit, I work in IT. And I actually don't care about IT, but it's a great paycheck.
Yes, but think about this. If you provide those growing opportunities for them and you find out what it is they want to do, aren't you building loyalty for the company? I think you are. And aren't you going to keep that employee around? Maybe they're whose goal in life is to do help desk for the rest of their life. But if you find out what they really want to do and you provide a growth path for them and that growth path happens to include more money, win-win. So that's what I like to do.
Maybe that person really does want to do help desk.
Maybe.
And maybe they don't even want to do help desk. Maybe the answer to that question is, actually, I just really like to have this job.
Yeah, and actually the Radical Candor actually talks about that and the steady growth path. Yeah. And there's a place for that in every company, but you also need to provide something for that person to keep their mind engaged. And maybe it isn't responsibility. Maybe they're never going to be an IT manager, and that's okay. Many people aren't. Yeah. Just make sure you're nurturing that person so they are content on your team.
Yes.
Make sure they're part of your team.
So. Yes. Yeah, I think that comes into... this isn't a question, but this is a quote from Alex, and it's on
this. What is it?
It is like, good managers delegate, bad managers micromanage.
I agree.
And that can look very different for very different people,
Yeah.
depending on how involved you are.
Yeah.
What may seem like micromanagement to a person is delegation to another.
Yeah.
If you're not having those hard conversations, then you don't know where you're at.
And I would add to that, not only delegate, but nurture, and not in like a mother way, but in a nurture your career.
Yeah.
I just think it goes to knowing your team.
All right.
Okay.
I think
What other
the one
questions
more
do we
question
have?
I have here,
Okay.
and then we can see if there's any that have come in the chat that I'm trying to keep an eye on it, is how do you train to become an IT manager?
Oh, I love this question.
Yeah. And this is from Agent 13.
So I have in my career, because I'm 900 years old, I've done tons of official management training where I go to fancy resorts and do all the training. That's what I'm going to say. Read lots of books. I think if you want to become an IT manager, the very best thing to do is fancy resorts in Italy, I wish, is form those relationships, number one. Find a mentor. I think I'm a big fan of mentors. I really am. And Josh is cringing over here because he's like, please don't call me. Please don't. I don't want to be a mentor. Find someone who you have a good relationship with, who you can just maybe talk to once a month, once every 2 weeks, who's in the space, who can talk to you, who, if you have an issue that you're maybe stuck in, you're like, how do I work through this issue? Bring that issue to that person and just start talking to them about it. Gain some experience with conflict. Have a comfortable space where you can talk about dealing with that conflict. I think that's a really good step number one.
Manage up.
Manage up, right. Hopefully that person is a step above you.
Yep.
And it can be in your organization. It doesn't have to be in your organization, though. It's just a nice, easy way to practice that conflict. Then with your immediate supervisor, start getting involved in these projects. Like if they're doing a big project, like you're doing a big project right now. Hey, Josh, can I be involved in this? I'd like to know how the budget works. I'd like to know how you're going to migrate X, Y, and Z. Get yourself involved in the IT managers going on.
Ask meaningful questions. Don't expect it to just come and be handed to you.
It won't be.
It will never be. I think the thing I want to add to that is the obvious add-on, because it's come up in the chat as I've watched it the whole time, is, okay, I'm going to be an IT manager. How do I keep my skills from atrophying? Because I really do love IT. That's why I'm here. And the only thing I can have is anecdotally what I do, because I very rarely am doing tech anymore, to be honest. Like I don't, my team does it. And so the role that I've taken to try and stay and keep up is I will either A, jump in the trenches on some project that I feel confident in doing, but more often than not, I take the role of the gadfly. And the role of the gadfly is essentially, if you're not familiar, is when someone proposes an idea, you take the opposing viewpoint for an argumentative sake, just to make sure, to ensure that the outcome is the best one possible, right? So my team will probably tell you that I do this all the time to an annoying extent. Hey, I want to make this change to the network to be able to do this. And I will immediately counter to well, you can't do that because of, and I will just insert something why. And it helps me to not only just conceptually, even though I can't do it anymore, I conceptually keep up with the industry and what people are trying to do. That helps me like know what the projects are. It helps me advocate for my team. Even though I can't do it anymore, I know why things are happening instead of just regurgitating what someone has told me, because that's the worst manager to be, is you don't understand. And now you're just stuck in the middle, just like being someone's puppet and trying to deflect. That's horrible.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like that too.
That's my thoughts on how to train to be a manager and how to not lose your skills at the same time.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Well, we're almost at time. Do you guys want to hit a couple from the chat?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I was going to say one more thing really quick. After you've had a mentor,
Oh my gosh.
be a mentor.
Yeah.
Sorry
practice
about
being a
that. That
mentor.
was probably jarring.
Be a mentor.
Go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
All right. So there you go. What do you like and what do you hate in your job? From Marcel.
I will tell you what I like. I love watching people grow. I love being able to build runway for people and watch them accomplish their goals, or being able to have them have a technical idea that they feel challenged and they can't accomplish, and being able to just remove roadblocks and watch them do it. It's so much more satisfying for me than if I did it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I really like watching someone grow into the person that I think they want to be.
Yeah.
That's my absolute favorite.
Yeah.
I hate dealing with the political crap. Hate it. But I like removing it from the team so the team can succeed.
Yeah.
So it's a love-hate.
Yeah. There's not anything that I absolutely hate about my job. I don't think anything actually falls in that category. Other than I hate that I can't actually be the one to sit down at a terminal and do the thing as quickly as I could. I can still figure it out, but it takes me a long time.
Fair enough. Let's hit another one. All right. Did you want to become a manager? What progression took you to that role? From Mike B.
Oh, no. Never, ever did I want to grow up and be a manager. It was not what I had set out to do. My story is I ended up taking like a certified Scrum product owner class at some point for some reason and realized, I kind of like this conceptual thing of like being the roadblock remover. And then I had this really awesome mentor that worked here.
Brig.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just call him out, Brig. And watching him manage and like having some real direct conversations with him made me realize I actually really like this. And I like not being in the spotlight. I don't ever want to be in the spotlight. I want to remove stuff so that other people who are smarter than me, because that's not hard to do, can get out there and do the right thing. And
That is hard to do.
You.
everyone on my team is smarter than me, hands down.
I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I literally became a manager at 17 because they fired the manager and came up to me and say, hey, we want you to be the manager. That's literally true. Everywhere I work, they're like, hey, you're super bossy. Let's make you the manager. That's honestly the truth.
Yeah. I was like, I never wanted it. But it happened and I liked it. So
Very nice. All right. How about two more questions?
let's do it.
Okay. All right. IT managers struggle with internal department advocacy. Have you guys struggled with that? From Brandon A.
I don't struggle with that at all. I love to advocate for my team. It's my favorite thing to do, in fact. I'm all about advocating for the team. I am fiercely loyal to the team. I will advocate for my team till I die, in fact. And it gets me in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, the problem, I'm going to take this from a different angle. The problem I see is when IT managers or people will go to advocate for their team and the answer is no, or something else happens and it's deprioritized, insert whatever word you want to be here, but the answer ends up being no. Mm-hmm. I think the worst thing that you can do as a manager in that scenario is to blame someone else. Well, they over there, the bosses said we can't do this. It creates an adversarial relationship and it just perpetuates this same cycle. So take some ownership. The answer is very rarely just no. Mm-hmm. And if you're accepting a just no without understanding the reasons why, I would argue that you're not doing your job effectively.
Yeah.
As a manager.
That's true. Well, and I want to say the caveat, I will advocate till the day I die, but if you lie to me, I will kill you.
Yeah. A little dark, but okay.
I know. No, but that's true, though. That's absolutely true. Just don't lie to me.
Yeah. All right, we got one more, Jake?
Yeah, let's go one more. Final question of the day. As an IT manager, how do you gain respect as a Mac user? Zorro.
Well, okay, here, I'm going to answer this because I've managed in a multi-platform environment in several places. It's not that, this is the issue. Macs, and I can give you the numbers because I actually had to prepare a proposal for this to get more staffing. They require it's a 2-to-1 staffing ratio. If you are managing in a multi-platform environment, the studies have shown that you should be double staffed. This is true. You should have 2 help desk people to 1 if you have Windows and Mac combined. So it's not that you are not getting respect as a Mac user. It's that the IT manager is like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I need more staff to manage these Macs. So it's not that they don't respect you. It's that the executives
still
won't
true?
give you this. Yeah, I actually just did research the other day for this because I was looking at something because they wrote a blog and it was wrong and I had to go correct them. And so I went back and pulled the research that I had done. So it's not that. It's that they're struggling so hard to manage your machine because they have a hard time doing it centrally. And so not us, because we have the thing.
Yeah.
But in the
I was going to say, I
enterprise-
actually prefer
yeah.
a Mac environment now. I
But
think
now
it's easier to manage.
imagine you have 3 people and you have 2,000 devices and you don't have simple MDM and you don't have Connect and you can't get it to join the network and you're struggling and you're annoyed and this graphic designer is insisting on having a Mac and they're mad.
I think
It's not that they're mad at you. They're mad at the
I think
staff.
the struggle comes in when it's a mixed environment
Exactly.
and you're not tooled or
That's
don't have
exactly
the
right.
knowledge appropriately. I think
That's
that's the
exactly right.
frustration is, and it's not the problem with Mac. It's not a problem with Apple. It's not a problem with Windows. It's you're not equipped.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's easy to blame the thing that comes in and makes your life hard.
Exactly. They're not mad at you. It's a staffing issue.
Yeah, I will tell you right now that simple MDM though just
Makes it so much easier. Yeah. And so does Jamf, but Jamf is ridiculously expensive. So
geez, shots fired.
no, I'm not. I love Jamf. I used Jamf for many years. It's just really expensive. If you don't have the money, you're frustrated, right?
All right, sure. Cool. All right, was that our last question?
Yeah, wrap us up.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to Tara and I today as we talked about, all things IT manager. We've gone back and forth on a bunch of different things here. For PDQ, I'm Josh.
I'm Tara.
I'm Jake, and this is Jansen. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for listening to the webcast today. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube if you're not already. Also, you can go join the Discord as well. It's a thriving, bustling community over there, and we would love to see you over there. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us every Thursday. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.